segueing, I kind of want to talk about, kind of how we think the teams are going to shape out in each conference. We're not going to I don't think we have time for a thorough explanation of each one. So, kind of the important ones, I guess we'll go over.
Yeah, this is definitely gonna be more quick, but
Yeah.
just kind of like our, you know,
Well, I think top players need more
yeah.
explanation because we love the top players in the league. Kind of want to talk about them more. So in the East, this is how I see the playoffs shaping up. So I'm going to go in order. So the 8th seed, I think, goes to the Pistons. The 7th seed, I think, goes to the Heat. They're playing really well right now, and Butler's a dog, but I don't think they have the requisite talent they need to be a top seed. At 6, I got the Nets. It is the Kyrie Irving show, and do not get that twisted. Kenny Atkinson's a great coach, and I believe that they will build chemistry throughout the year. At 5, I got the Raptors. They just won the finals. They have that team experience that they need to make another run, or at least be a top 5 team in the East. Number 4, I got the Pacers. They're gonna get Oladipo back eventually, and I think they have great chemistry. And I really like what Nate McMillan is doing over there. At 3, I got the Celtics. Kimba is a better chemistry piece than Kyrie, and I think everyone else will play better. And I think Gordon Hayward's going to play a lot better this year. I got the Sixers at 2. They got the best young talent in the league. I don't think that they are good enough at shooting to be the best team in the East, but I've got them at 2. And number 1, I got the Bucks. I think they got the best coach in the East. I think they have the best player in the East. They are long and athletic. They return basically their whole team other than Malcolm Brogdon. And I just think that they sense that this is their year. So that's what I got in the East. In the West, I got the Mavericks at 8. Luka and Porzingis are monsters. The West should be worried about them a little bit. 7, I got the Blazers. 6, I got the Spurs with the return of DeJounte Murray. I think that's a big pickup, especially in a Greg Popovich system. In 22 minutes, he's already averaging 12, 8, and 5, just now kind of easing his way back in. At 5, I got the Nuggets. I think everyone in the West got better, and that kind of makes the Nuggets go down in the rankings a little bit compared to last year. And I think they're more worried about the playoffs than they were so much about the regular season last year. At 4, I got the Jazz with the additions of Conley and Bogdanovich, so Mitchell doesn't have to make every play. And I just kind of want to say, Rudy Gobert, you got to relax. You are not a top offensive player on that team. Stop complaining.
Chill.
At 3, I got the Lakers. I think they're going to load manage in the middle of the season and focus more on the playoffs. And I think this is the toughest competition that LBJ has ever had to play in his conference this year. At 2, I got the Rockets. They have arguably the 2 best regular season players in the game. And they have Mike D'Antoni, who really tends to do well in the regular season. And I think they're going to continue to build chemistry with Westbrook throughout the year. And I got the Clippers. There really doesn't have to be too much said here. They have, in my opinion, the best or second best duo in the league. They have the best bench and depth in the league. They have one of the best coaching staff from Doc Rivers to Ty Lue, and their whole staff is just unbelievable. And I think they're the best defensive team in terms of talent all time. So there you go. Those are my top 8 teams in both the East and West. Kind of how I see the playoff picture shaping up when it's around that time. So what do you got, Tony? What are your lists looking like?
um, yeah. So we kind of have the same teams. In the East, just a little different order. Starting with the Pistons. Once Blake Griffin gets back, with D Rose kind of on that team now, I feel like it's more dynamic. Luke Kennard also is really hooping this season. That guy's cold. I don't know if y'all seen his footwork, but he's really good. And I don't think anybody talks about him, but
Duke prodigy.
yeah, no, Duke prodigy for sure. So at 7 we have the Pacers, not doing too hot right now. When Oladipo comes back, they are going to make a push, but I just feel like I don't know. They did add Brogdon, so they're gonna have to figure that out first because I don't know who's gonna start exactly. Really big fan of Sabonis, but so like I think Sabonis has a chance to be an all-star, especially with the bigs in that conference. If he really produces enough, I think he could make this big leap this season. 6, I have the Nets with just Kyrie. I have them at 6. I think they have a lot of depth, but I do think they need KD for this team to be like sufficient and to be like a real contender. Otherwise, I just see this as kind of like a transition year. They're probably going to get in the playoffs at like 6, maybe go to the second round, but that's really like all I expect from them. A little controversial, but I have the Heat before them at 5. They look so good this year, and Spoelstra does a really good job of coaching that young group of guys. Um, if you just look at their team, they have so many young stars that have like very high ceilings. Their recruitment's really good. They've gotten a lot of good guys, especially Kendrick Nunn. Undrafted guy. Like they found that talent, and they had like enough courage to actually play an undrafted guy with crazy minutes. Like he's earned every single bit, but um, it's not that easy to give a guy that didn't get drafted by a team like 20 minutes a game. Um, but yeah, I think they're at 5 this year. New look team. I like them. Raptors at 4. They got worse, but not that worse. Yeah, I think they're better than the Heat, but I don't think they're going to make any serious threats in the East. But they are a very solid team, and they were the champions, so I'll give them 4. 3, we have the Celtics. I think they're going to be a little bit better this year, as long as we're talking about like systems. I just wouldn't give Jaylen Brown that contract. I think they could have done a lot more with that money, and I don't know. They haven't really signed a guy after their rookie deal to a max in a really long time, and I just don't think Jaylen Brown is the person to take a risk on. But this season they're going to be pretty good. Really solid rotation. I like their starting lineup. But at 2, I have the Bucks. So I would put them at 1, but once again, like Giannis's shooting hasn't really taken the leap we were expecting. And they did lose Malcolm Brogdon, which was their starting shooting guard. He really spaced out the floor for them, but I feel like spacing is going to be a little harder this year, so less easy buckets for Giannis. 76ers are number 1. I'm the biggest fan of their offseason moves. They've been most impressive so far, and they definitely have the lineup in the East to guard Giannis. They're just a really big team, and I don't think anybody in the league is really like made like them, so that's why I have them at 1. I expect a lot of them this year. For going into the West, at 8, I have the Spurs, just purely because of Greg Popovich. Keon kind of convinced me this. I didn't think they're going to make the playoffs this year, but I just feel like he's just such a good coach. They do have a solid amount of talent over there, and I just feel like his coaching is enough to just make it in the playoffs. Blazers at 7, haven't been doing that good, but with Whiteside, Nurkic, McCollum, and Lillard, I feel like that's enough talent to get by. I don't think they're going to make any noise in the playoffs, but definitely I feel like they're going to be doing better than they are now. Not exactly sure when Nurkic is coming back, but when he comes back, that team's going to be in full force. Mavs are kind of surprised, but I have them at 6. I think Kristaps and Luka is like my favorite pairing, almost one of my, not my favorite, but close. Favorite pairing in the league. They just love to share the ball, and they play really good basketball. Like I enjoy watching the Mavs, even though I'm a Houston fan. But that's another topic for another day. So we're having the Jazz at 5. They really haven't performed up to expectations so far, but veteran point guard, good system, good coach, defensive player of the year candidate as your center. Then you got an all-star shooting guard that's maybe like going to have his best season yet. I feel like Donovan Mitchell can have a breakout season. Like when I mean breakout, I mean like superstardom. I just feel like it's a matter of time. Maybe Conley's the recipe for that. And then Nuggets are at 4. They just play really good basketball. They're solid, like 1 through 9, super solid rotation. Introducing Michael Porter Jr. this year. They have a lot of versatile pieces. I think this is really important once it starts to get later in the season. Dudes start getting injured. I think they have the guys to cover those bases. Rockets at 3. Another defense is a concern, but come on, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, like that's at least a 3 seed. I wouldn't put them ahead of the Clippers and Lakers just because of our defense, but I think we're just as dangerous as any team in this conference. Like we could beat anyone if it really came down to it, as long as we just sort the defense out. Clippers I have at number 2. They're just 2 guys. Paul George and Kawhi is just monsters. Like I don't know how you could defend that. They're going to guard the best player the whole game. Like Kawhi and Paul George will take turns guarding the best player on your team the whole game. And I just think that's a really big deal, especially with like Beverly, Harold. Like they just really like sound on defense, and I feel like that's really rare in the NBA. That's why I have them over the Rockets. But at one, I do have the Lakers just because of LeBron, um, best player in the league. I'll put them as a team to beat. They've really impressed me this year. Their role players are actually stepping up more than I expected. Looking at the roster, I was like, man, they're not that much better than the Cavaliers role players, but the like Danny Green, like these guys have been really hooping. I think they deserve a lot more respect. A lot of it is LeBron, but I think they deserve just as much recognition. Especially with Anthony Davis, basketball is just a lot easier.
That's your list. All right, go ahead, Alejandro.
Alright, so starting with the Eastern Conference, I got the Magic at 8, Pacers at 7. Honestly, the Pacers are one of my sleeper teams. I don't think they're gonna have the regular season success because Victor Oladipo's out, but they might have the playoffs. They might have a lot of playoff success. I have them going to the Eastern Conference Finals. At 6, I have the Pistons. At 5, I have the Heat. 4, the Celtics. 3 of the Raptors. At the beginning of the season, we've seen that maybe Kawhi was maybe a little too overhyped. The Raptors are playing really well. Kawhi's playing really well. Fred's playing well. Pascal's playing out of his mind. 2 out of the Bucks. Then at 1 out of the 76ers. I feel like with the removal of Jimmy Butler from their team has more spacing. Ben Simmons is becoming a little more threat from shooting. Joel Embiid's playing out of his mind. He's a dog. Then just going to the Western Conference, I have the Suns at 8.
Ooh,
Hot take of the day.
he's a buyer.
Booker's
Suns buyer.
Booker's playing out of his mind. Aaron Baines, the man's a 3-point god.
Hey, MVP candidate Aaron Baines.
Yeah,
Now, what are we talking?
At 7, I have the Spurs. At 6, I have the Mavs with Luka. He might be a top 5 MVP candidate by the end of the year. At 5, I have the Jazz. At 4, I have the Nuggets. 3, the Clippers. Then 2, Lakers. I think the Lakers are the best duo in the league with LeBron and Anthony Davis.
Are you gonna do it?
Then yeah, I have to do it. The Rockets at 1.
We promise we're not biased. We
Yeah,
promise.
definitely not, but I just think this year, I think it's gonna take like a 2 or 3 months to gel. By like January, I think we're gonna see the Rockets at their like best version of themselves. But just a combination of Russell Westbrook leading in the fast break and Harden slowing it down when we need to, it's just a lethal combination.